Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 7, Chapter 10, Text number 8. Indriyani manak prana Atma dharmo dhriti matihi Ri Shri Tejasmriti Satyam Yasya Nashyanti Janmana Indriyani manak prana Atma dharmo dhritir matihi Ri Shri Tejasmriti Satyam Yasya Nashyanti Janmana. Someone else wants to chant, please.
Indriyani manaha prana Atma dharmo dhiti Ri Shri Tejas Nirti Satyam Yasya Nashyanti Janmana Indriyani manaha prana Atma dharmo dhiti matihi Shri Tejas Nirti Satyam Yasya Nashyanti Janmana.
Ladies, please.
Indriyani manak prana
Indriyani manak prana Atma dharmo dhritir matihi Hri Shri Tejasmriti Satyam
Indriyani mana prana Dharmo dhiti matihi Vishri Tejasmati Satyam Yasya Nashyanti Janmana
Indriyani, the senses. Manaha, the mind. Pranaha, the life air. Atma, the body. Dharmaha, religion. Drittihi, patience. Matihi, intelligence. Ri, shyness. Shri, opulence. Tejaha, strength. Smritihi, memory. Satyam, truthfulness. Yasya, of which lusty desires. Nashyanti, are vanquished. Janmana, from the very beginning of birth. Oh my Lord, because of lusty desires from the very beginning of birth, the functions of one's senses, mind, life, body, religion, patience, intelligence, shyness, opulence, strength, memory, and truthfulness are vanquished. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, kamam hrid rogam. Materialistic life means that one is afflicted by a formidable disease called lusty desire. Liberation means freedom from lusty desires, because it is only due to such desires that one must accept repeated birth and death. As long as one's lusty desires are unfulfilled, one must take birth after birth to fulfill them. Because of material desires, therefore, one performs various types of activities and receives various types of bodies with which to try to fulfill desires that are never satisfied. The only remedy is to take to devotional service, which begins when one is free from all material desires. So I guess we can't begin devotional service. Which comes first? Anya abhilashita shunyam. Anya abhilashita means material desire, and shunyam means free from. The spirit soul has spiritual activities and spiritual desires as described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhakti rahaita ki twayi. Unalloyed devotion to the service of the Lord is the only spiritual desire. To fulfill this spiritual desire, however, one must be free from all material desires. Desirelessness means freedom from material desires. This is described by Rupa Goswami as Anyavilashita Shunyam. As soon as one has material desires, he loses his spiritual identity. Then, all the paraphernalia of one's life, including one's senses, body, religion, patience, and intelligence, are deviated from one's original Krishna consciousness. As soon as one has material desires, one cannot properly use his intelligence, his senses, intelligence, mind, and so on for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mayavadi philosophers want to become impersonal, senseless, and mindless, but that is not possible. The living entity must be living, always existing with desires, ambitions, and so on. These should be purified, however, so that one can desire spiritually and be spiritually ambitious without material contamination. In every living entity, these propensities exist because he is a living entity. When materially contaminated, however, one is put into the hands of material misery, janma mrityu jara vyadi. If one wants to stop repeated birth and death, one must take to the devotional service of the Lord. Sarvopadi vinir muktam, tat paratvena nirmalam, rishi kena rishi kesha sevanam, bhakti ruchate. Translation. Bhakti, or devotional service, means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is free from all material designations, and simply by being employed in the service of the Lord, one's senses are purified. So which comes first? The senses contaminated by material desires are finished with material desires, and then devotional service begins? Or devotional service begins, and then in time gradually the senses become purified and material desires diminish and are gone? Or is it really an either or? Is it either A or B, or is it another? There are different ways of looking at it besides A or B. Sometimes Prabhupada emphasizes A, sometimes he emphasizes B. I just was hearing yesterday morning Prabhupada explaining that the predicament, you can't until then what to do, and then he quoted 1866. The solution is surrender. So even one may be not purified, one who is not purified or purified, by surrendering, then covering the sinful reactions, for sure, are removed. And when the sinful reactions are removed, then that's a purified state. So one has to take to the surrendering process. And the surrendering process, once again, can take place whether one is in a purified or unpurified condition. One of his favorite verses to quote in that context, Hiratra Hunanda Palinda Pokrasha, etc. Persons who are in an unfavorable circumstance by birth can also become purified. And for that to happen, the agent or the representative of the person, one who is carrying bhakti, needs to meet one who's not purified yet. So then that means the carrier of Krishna's mercy, in the form of inviting persons or infecting persons in the good sense with bhakti, is necessary, not optional. So, Hare Krishna. One can take up bhakti from any background. Striyo Vaishas Tata Shudras Tepiyanti Param Gatim. Anyone from any background can take up devotional service through the mercy of one who's a devotee, through the one who's carrying bhakti. One can pass on bhakti. Now that's an important function. Our reaching out to others is an important function. There's risks, and to not do so is another risk. Supposing one doesn't do so and one wants to be just engaged in bhajan. So that's had such risks. The risks of the mind and senses not yet fully purified, and one can go in different directions, dragged by the mind and senses. It happens. And it also happens, if one takes risks, that one may be infected by bad association. One is protected instead of infected by the mood of service. But supposing, like we discussed yesterday, supposing there is slackening, or one becomes complacent, or one is not on guard against unwholesome association. So some of you are householders. All of you are householders. And through your occupation, you have association by necessity with people who are less devotional, say that. And some are further in the darker region. So what to do? Let's go back to the verse. From the very beginning. Huh? Okay. From the very beginning, there's lusty desires. Oh my Lord, because of lusty desires from the very beginning of one's birth, all these nice things are destroyed. So it's how do you get rid of lusty desires? Same path, by surrendering to Krishna. How does that become possible? Through association. Okay, I've had association, and I've at least to some degree surrendered to Krishna, and now I have contaminating association. What do I do? stay connected to the principle, the bhakti principle. So even when you're in unwholesome association, one of the things that you can do is you can be thoughtful to three things. You can be thoughtful that I'm in this situation as an agent of Krishna. So if I can conduct myself in a way that's exemplary of a Vaishnava and engage in what I'm doing and interacting, social interactions, and mindful of my being a representative of Krishna, then that bhakti principle, A, will protect me, and B, may infect them. Pretty simple. How many renounced persons are there in the world out of all the people in the world? Not so many. Not so many. So let's put it this way. All the people that you in the room interact with in your workplace, it's a large number of people, whatever that number is. And what sannyasi can go meet all those people, but you're meeting all those people. So you can be a positive influence by the bhakti that you carry, by a good example. And what happens if you conduct yourself as a person with integrity, what will happen, usually, if not more than usually, is somebody's going to have a problem. And when somebody has a problem, they want to go to somebody who they can look up to and feel confident that they can hear from them and comfort them and guide them through their problem. It happens. Probably you've all had the experience. Or some of you at least have had the experience. Where persons who you maybe didn't so much expect, but they come out and in some circumstance. I've had devotees describe this to me. There's anecdotal experiences. You're a different person. I'm struggling. This happened, that happened. What should I do? You have any advice for me? Or something like that. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. Because if you're thinking, let me be Krishna's little emissary here in the workplace, and at least let me show by example, this is how one who is a Vaishnava behaves. Their character, their speech, their demeanor. Be a little model, role model of Vaishnava. Because achar speaks stronger than prachar. And when the circumstance comes for you to do some prachar, be cautious. Don't say too much. Don't say too much. Depends, of course, but slowly, that can be something that can further encourage persons to open up further and confide more and share more and be more eager to receive. Now, there are circumstances when to be very strong, like, an antiseptic on a infected sore, and then it stings. But so sometimes that's needed. But generally speaking, most people can receive if it's not too much at once. And they understand the place that the giving is coming from is as a place of wisdom and a place of kindness. So that's one of the things that one can do when in unwholesome association or, by the circumstances of your life. Try to give association, try to give some kind of service according to the circumstance, the person, time, place, etc. And that's, again, let's go back to the principle of how to overcome misfortune or lusty desires or desires that are materialistic in nature, is purify them. Purify them so that I can engage in, there's these verses that say, and then devotional service begins. Mam choyo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sogadan samati jaitan brahma boyaya kalpate. So what were you doing before the devotional service begins? You're doing devotional service because those principles are principles of devotional service, but it's pure devotional service. It's not mixed devotional service. So the platform of becoming literally freed from material desire while living in the world, doing what you do, and consciousness that I'm representing Krishna always. I'm his servant. He's the one who I'm serving, not other masters. The other persons may think they're the masters. Let me think Krishna is my master, and let me serve him favorably in each of the circumstances. So as that consciousness becomes strengthened, arises and becomes strengthened, then it's the guiding principle of life, which is what Prahlad Maharaj said a few verses ago. He's come to teach the way of pure devotional service. So this is part of it. Part of it is being cautious. He is speaking back and forth and back and forth. He has no material desire, now he has material desire. Or as if he has material desire. So he's instructing, beware of, and lusty desire has its, number one attraction at the hit parade, sex desire. But lusty desire means far more than that. The broader idea is objects of this world are lusted after as a means of enjoyment, whatever that might be. So it's a strong mood of enjoying an object for the gratification of my senses. And thus, Rishikena Rishikesha, Sevanam is gone. It's covered, not gone, it's just covered. I'll share a little bit and see if there's some discussion. Those of you that were with us Monday morning, the light of the Bhagavad is really nice. I just can't help but appreciate the masterfulness of our founder Acharya to take scenes of nature and teach the Srimad Bhagavatam. Really nice. And one of the things that we were hearing was, it connects with things that are from earlier chapters. The role of he would sometimes use the word sage or the sadhu or the renounced person. They have a function, and their function is the antiseptic function, is to administer to those that by circumstance of life may become unduly attached, and to, in various ways, assist them to become not so attached by teaching and by example and so forth and so on. So that's when that comes, the earlier chapters, I may have mentioned this, there's a description during the rainy season, the frogs that live in dark wells, they call out very loudly. And Prabhupada is equating that to householders that object to, they just don't like the association of sadhus or mendicants or renounced people because it disturbs them. They want to be enjoyers. And these people remind them of, that's not the best thing to do, just be a sense gratifier enjoyer. But then there are those that welcome that association. And those that welcome that association can get the benefit. And then the benefit is they model the example of detachment, but they also remind those who have a tendency, because of circumstance, to be attached, to become free from attachment. So that's another way of saying the same thing, how to overcome material desire, lusty desire or material desire. By good association, one can come to the place of surrendering to Krishna. And there's a social structure for that. It doesn't mean that householders have to be attached. Householders can live, ideal householders can live in the world and not be attached. Be very like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In the world, but not attached. 10 children. Some of you have 2. He had 10. Think about it for a moment. In the Yogpith, the place where Bhaktivinoda Thakur discovered the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the back side, there's a little shrine. On one side of the shrine, or little altar temple area, Gaur Gadadhar, and Lord Nrsingadev, Lakshmi Nrsimha. That structure is the samadhi of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's wife, Bhagavati Devi. He was detached, and he had great appreciation for her character at the same time. So it's certainly possible for one who is elevated, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur was certainly elevated, to be a householder, doing duties, engaging, because of his being a high court judge and magistrate, he had to associate with worldly people. But we didn't do it with pride, or didn't do it with attachment. He did it as a means of service and elevating them. He was what a role model. And detached from family at the same time, making a samadhi for his wife. And the place that he discovered as the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Wow. So it's there are examples. There's other examples, but there are examples of persons living in household life that are very, very elevated. And some of those very, very elevated persons are more free from material desire than a renunciate who is not yet fully free from material desire, but working on it. And look, Prahlad Maharaj became married. He had children, and he ruled the kingdom, but without attachment. So it's exceptional. Point to exceptions and say, there's the model, and then I'm way over here. So what am I supposed to do? Because I'm not way over there. We look up to those ideal examples. We don't copy, imitate. That's also foolish. But understand, like this verse, the risk and the detriment of lusty desire. So one is very cautious in navigating one's way through the material world. Again, repeating a point from yesterday, without becoming complacent. Even on this elevated stage. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Maharaj, this question is by Srujana Mataji.
Is who?
Srujana Mataji. Is it appropriate to think qualification to give bhakti is to receive bhakti in disciplic succession? Is there something else that would be needed?
Well, humility and sincerity, and there's some other qualifiers that are certainly helpful, but you can't give without having received. So there's additional qualifications that helps it to become effective and not push people away. But yeah, that's essential.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So, as in this shloka, it says that in the beginning, very beginning of the one birth, and he says that I think at the very beginning of the birth, the lusty desires is destroying all these qualities. So, is this the birth they are talking about? As soon you will take the birth in this human form, is that the period, or is that after like certain age?
What do you think?
I'm thinking that because soon the child born, he should not have those kind of desires. He is completely depending upon the parents and those guidance, right? But as soon he will connect,
The way that the lusty desires, and making it not just sex desire, is lusty desire, but there's objects, and the objects are meant for my enjoyment, and so forth. Is that there at the very beginning or not? It's there.
correct. So materialistic thing, I think child is liking some toys or something. That is also desire. Everything.
Whatever it is, anything that they can get their hands on
Right.
goes to the mouth. Anamoya.
Right. So the second part of this is to get rid of the lust, as you mentioned, Maharaj, we have to have association. Associations of senior acharyas or senior
Anyone
who are already practicing the devotions.
Anyone carrying bhakti.
Anyone is carrying bhakti. So is that the only the associations will help to progress, or do I need to do anything else?
Well, of course you need to do something else. That's how it begins. I'll just make a comment. You've heard the name Stilson Judah? Stilson Judah was a professor in California. He was a professor in California. He had met Srila Prabhupada and had affection for Srila Prabhupada, and was a regular person that Prabhupada cultivated and engaged in. He was a sociologist, and one of the books he wrote was interviews with devotees. And one of the topics was, how did someone become a devotee? How did they get introduced? And his findings from his research was that many of the newer Hare Krishna devotees living in the ashram, the first contact was not with somebody living in the ashram. The first contact was somebody that had some bhakti they received from somebody, a practitioner, and they told their friend. And then their friend heard from their friend that wasn't a practicing sadhaka, and they took interest. So I'm just making the point that it doesn't have to be an elevated person that they can help one begin. Just someone that has some appreciation. And then the appreciation can be they have good food, or can be whatever it is. Now,
Ask one more question.
but I didn't. I touched on one part of your question. I don't know if I got the other part, and I've already forgotten the other part.
So another question it will help. So like I'm talking about myself. I'm associating with the devotees.
Good.
And I'm keep on practicing, and I'm thinking that this birth going to be the last birth, right? It's not guarantee.
No
So,
guarantee.
what is the differentiator between the person who can elevate from this birth, or may I will take many birth with the associations? What I should having that differentiator that this is my last birth. How I can prepare my mindset so that I should not be coming back.
Two things. This chapter 10 of Canto 7 is a very good example of that, how to identify the answer to your question. That's, is there anything else you need to do? Yes. And these are some things that you need to do. It's in the chapter. And a second response is the desire for liberation is another. Depending upon the desire for liberation, it may very well be the flip side of attachment. The aversion is the flip side of attachment. So those aspiring for mukti, now over and over and over and over, Prabhupada would speak about Jamna Mrityu Jara Vyadi, and the human mission is to become free from those contaminations of material existence. However, one who is simply aspiring for that is the flip side of attachment. It's aversion. And so, wanting to not take birth again, a higher position is simply let me be engaged in your service birth after birth. Now, that's a very high position. That's a very high position. Say it 3 times. It's a very high position. But that's something to aspire for, because that's the essence of what will get you back home, back to Godhead, which is, I simply desire to be engaged in service. Because that's back home, back to Godhead. Such a state of consciousness in this very lifetime, one is back home, back to Godhead, not just as the destination at the end of the train ride.
And Maharaj, I want to put some comments like that question is also from the very beginning stage when I started the bhakti, right? So now eventually once I started and keep on reading the books from the different acharya, like one of the shloka, Anabhilashita sunyam jnana karmadi anarvutam anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttama. So anabhilashita, without any desires, we have to perform. And again in the Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavita ma jagat ishwa kama hai mama janmani janmani ishware bhaktir bhavatir ayatuki tui. So in that also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami talking about the same, without any abhilasha, we have to serve.
Yeah.
So there is no question of like liberation now. So
Bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakale, ashanti.
Right.
You know that one.
Correct.
Bhukti, mukti, siddhi. Those are 3 categories of desire. Kami, sakale, ashanta. They make the mind ashanta.
Ashanta, yeah. So eventually at the starting, that was the goal was. Now the thing is, doesn't matter what birth we are getting. We are only praying for.
It's very high. Yes, that's correct. I'm interrupting. Go ahead.
So that's my only comments, Maharaj. It was not a question. So the thing is, my end goal is starting from that. Okay, we don't have to take birth again because this is dukhalyam and ashashvatam. So this is temporary and the full of miseries. So, but the end goal is whatever the level we can serve, and if we have to take birth, also praying to the Lord so that we can serve again to the Lord and Acharya.
Let's get real. Of the persons attending this morning class, there is certainly an interest in bhakti, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. Now, in real terms, how many of us are going back to Godhead? Then another answer is it's very rare. That on the realistic side, if there's even a pinch, repeating Prabhupada's paraphrased message, even if there's a pinch of material desire, one will take birth again. Shunya, anyal abhila shunya. Who can say, no material desire, no squeaky clean, and that's the criterion, and I'm not there yet. Oh, another birth. So one can get discouraged because I want liberation, and from Mahaprabhu's teaching, that's a witch, and it makes one's mind disturbed. We discussed this verse yesterday, no, 2 evenings ago, where in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this is one of the writings of Rupa Goswami, and Vallabhacharya thought the witch is too strong. But it's a witch. Mukti is a witch. In the sense that it blocks the Shuddha Bhakti path, because it's not Shuddha Bhakti. It's about me, or it's about me, or it's about me. Mukti, Siddhi, Kami. And Bhakti is about Krishna. So how to move the orientation from let this be my last birth to something else. Doesn't mean, most elevated persons are not thinking, let me out of here, this place is crazy. But we're certainly thinking that way. We should be thinking that way. This place is crazy. So it's not a nice place for a gentleman. Bhakti Siddhanta's language. However, the cultivation, followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are encouraged in a variety of ways to come to the stage, come to the orientation that's, let me just simply engage in service unto the lotus feet of Krishna, or Radha Krishna. And that's self-fulfilling and satisfying, like a question yesterday, when one may feel so satisfied with that, that's everything. And then, Krishna, you can do with me what you want. That's how, as I said before, with 3 varies, very rare. But that's the back to Godhead ticket, and it's to be cultivated. At least followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, yes, or follower Prahlad Maharaj, was Vaikunthavasi. You have something online?
This question is by Sucharita Mataji. It's 2 questions actually. The first one, I think there are desires I have, even unknown to me. Would those also go with the process of bhakti, or conscious efforts are needed?
Well, if that person was sitting in the room, I would ask them, what do you think? But they're not in the room, so I'll say, bhakti is not a vending machine. Do this, pull the lever, and down comes the product. Certainly there's submission to the object of loving service, Krishna. But it's not just you do that and voila. So we discussed this yesterday, ongoing submission, or don't become complacent. Here at this example, Prahlad has already demonstrated no material desire, and now he's characterizing himself as if he has material desire, or one who of this world, born in a demoniac family, etc., etc. So there's something, it's just an ongoing process of submission, which is nice. It's wonderful. It wouldn't be nice if it wasn't.
The second question: with my own self doubt and flaws, how can I set example for others?
You can set example for others by setting example for yourself. You know, however we may be off the mark or less than perfect, or whatever, there are different ways of saying the same thing. Whatever our limitations are, recognize them, and with what we have, we offer that to Krishna, recognizing it's less than perfect, acknowledging to Krishna it's less than perfect, but this is my capacity. Please accept. And the continuing to strive to become more qualified or a more transparent representative. So to cultivate like that, that's our life. That's the sadhana stage of bhakti. And continue and continue and continue. Striving for that standard that you're not there yet. By mercy of Krishna and by our efforts combined. Something else? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So we may never reach the stage of Anyabhilashita Shunyam, but we are more dependent on the causeless mercy of the Guru as well as Krishna.
Yeah. That's great.
And also, I once heard Prabhupada actually say in one of his lecture that it just takes 1 minute of pure devotional service or chanting and Krishna will take you back.
Yeah.
So, can you elaborate on that,
Yeah.
Maharaj?
I'll give another statement. One devotee, I won't mention their name, was instructed by Srila Prabhupada when they were a new devotee that when you're chanting every day, you have 25,000 chances to achieve spiritual perfection. And if you can just say one name in the Maha Mantra without offense, purely, you've reached the position of perfection. Something to that effect. You've attained Krishna. Wait, I'm not. Let me before you say something further. Doesn't mean mechanical. The bell rings. When I just do this, then I get that. One must factor in Krishna's mercy. Now the good news is Krishna is merciful. At the same time, Krishna may bestow his mercy even to one who's not so qualified, or for one who is very earnest, very sincere, consistently like that. Krishna may not give that fullness of his mercy for whatever the reason, because he doesn't need a reason. To help us, to elevate us, not just to tease us and frustrate us, but to strengthen the relationship in a way that he knows best how to strengthen the relationship. All I'm saying here is it's not mechanical. Something. Yes, I'm going to give you the microphone. But
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Actually, ultimately, that means it is Krishna's mercy. He can give it to anyone, right?
good to know.
Pardon?
Putana.
Yeah. Because sometimes we feel, when we are chanting, okay, now we are doing devotional service, you are always remembering Krishna. But at the end of life, if you are not able to remember for any kind of circumstances, we don't know what circumstances
That's
we are
right.
in. And at that moment, we are not able to remember the Lord. So, do we miss the chance? All our
No.
life, we are being very sincere. But at that
But
moment,
still, the answer is very clear. Krishna doesn't have to do anything, but Prabhupada said a number of times in a number of ways, Krishna will intervene in that circumstance, and remembrance of him will come because he intervenes. Now, it's not mechanical,
right,
not a vending machine, but the independent Krishna can intervene even if circumstantially. Let's take Bhakti Maharaj, for example, the way
right,
that he left. Very unfortunate, most unfortunate. Now, there's an example that, in my mind at least, that most likely Krishna intervened from that circumstance that he didn't want, but he did it because others advised, etc., etc. And that's at least it's not a prophecy or a declaration, but it's a type of situation where Krishna may very well have stepped in, given the circumstance, etc., etc., and remembrance of Krishna appeared in his mind because of the devotion, the consistent, strong devotion to Prabhupada and Krishna for decades.
right.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj, this question is by Amrita Gaurangi Mataji. Krishna also says, as long as one has envy, we cannot understand him. What is the root cause and how to overcome envy?
Well, the root cause is envy of Krishna, envy of others. The root cause is envy of Krishna. And where does envy of Krishna come from? The envy of Krishna comes from rebelliousness of the soul. I don't want to get into a whole discussion on the fall of the jiva and all of that stuff because it gets very convoluted. But in principle, misuse of free will, thinking of oneself as a competitor and being envious of he who is actually supreme. So how can I don't want to get into a discussion fall of the jiva, but that's just the root. It's the improper regard towards Krishna is the root of envy. And then becomes envy in this physical or material plane. It's a potential of the jiva to do like that. Anyone else? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki